Next thing, speaking of Evan Rachel Wood, we're going to be talking about season 3, episode 3.
Episode 4.
Right? Is it 4?
Yeah.
I thought it was 3.
I'm just going to go home now.
Oh, come on. This show is not... This season, specifically, this season is not as bad as it used to be. Like, season 2, I found very confusing. There was so much going on with time lapses, and this season's pretty straightforward so far. And I the big reveal, of course...
Yes, you can trust nothing.
Yeah, in simulation, inside simulation. But the big reveal, because we had our theories that it was...
oh, man.
we were so
wrong.
We were way off.
I think that's when they lost me.
But
Really?
I think everyone who had a theory was also wrong.
I haven't heard... Nobody said that I know of. Nobody on YouTube or Twitter had said that it's 5.
Spoiler alert.
Heavy.
Just FYI.
Yeah,
Spoiler.
Heavy spoiler alerts. The 5 pearls that Dolores stole from Westworld and took with her into the real world were actually just 4 copies of herself, which
Yeah, and
that
Bernard.
was a reveal.
That was it.
And Bernard and
4 Dolores, 1 Bernard.
we're not talking about vampires anymore.
Yeah,
Jude.
you're stuck in nausea mode.
I am in vampire world.
Yeah, don't get her started on vampires.
Man, the vampire episode. That's gonna be.
You don't want me to do that episode with you
You just talk like this the whole time.
the entire time.
So season 4 or episode 4 of season 3 is called Mother of Exiles, and we get to see the return of the Man in Black,
Yes.
Ed Harris, and we get to see more of Charlotte's ultimate plan, or not Charlotte,
Dolores.
Dolores's ultimate plan. We get to see Bernard and Stubbs.
Stubbs.
Their buddy cop
They're-
shtick.
yeah.
I really like their relationship.
I do too.
It's really it was working
and
for
the
me.
fight between Stubbs and Dolores, where she's like, "Oh, you're working with Bernard now," and he's like, "Yeah, I kind of have to. So let's just get this over with." Like he knows he's going to get his ass
And
kicked.
she's like, oh, shit. Okay, yeah, I get it.
Nothing personal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she just wipes the floor with him, which was pretty funny.
He put a couple good hits in there.
You know what, though? I was telling Jude while we were watching the episode,
Because all of my thoughts come from Kadish.
yeah, that's why they're always correct.
That's a mic drop right there.
But so like we're watching that scene where there's like this big like masquerade party, and all the rich and powerful people show up there, and they're kind of auctioning off these. I can't tell if they were synth people or real people, whatever. But you could like buy someone to like have sex with them or like whatever.
It's like an art house hooker.
Yeah, and it was just like this really upscale hedonistic type thing. And Dolores was there to kidnap the guy that she basically pulled a heist on and was snuggling up to earlier in the season. And the music in that scene.
Oh, yeah. He was losing his mind over this during
Really?
the episode.
yeah, like you know how Westworld does this thing where like they take modern songs like Paint It Black or like whatever,
yeah.
and then they do like an
piano
instrumental rendition of it, like in the first season.
It's gorgeous, yeah.
Yeah, and like the music in this scene was just like I couldn't tell what the song was, but like
I had the subtitles on. It was oh god, I'll find out for you.
But like the song was just like so good, and I turned to Jude. I was like, oh my god, the music is just setting the stage for this scene so well. And there was like multiple things going on where, in addition to Dolores's plan kind of playing out, you also had Maeve tracking down the person who basically got Dolores her new identities and the bodies. And you find out that it's Musashi from Samurai World. Mm-hmm. But it's not Musashi. It's just someone in the body of Musashi. And then, like at the same time, Charlotte Hale is with Ed Harris's character, the Man in Black, and all these things are kind of sprung all at the same time. Where Maeve, the Man in Black, and Bernard all come to realize who is actually in the bodies of these replicants or of these hosts, and it's all Dolores.
Yeah.
And you're just like, whoa.
Yeah.
And it was so well revealed that I was just floored. But like I turned to Jude, I was like, this is the best episode yet.
Yeah.
I can totally agree with that. And it was set up, like you said, it was set up so perfectly. I can't really talk about it because you already said everything I was going to say, but I agree with you wholeheartedly. That whole scene was set up so perfectly, and the music
What's the guy's name that she's like there to kidnap? Is it like Luke or something?
I don't remember. He's the owner of
Yeah.
the Rehoboam computer algorithm thing.
I love how like all of his friends are on drugs and they're just watching her like beat the shit out of Stubbs and they're like, these drugs are awesome. Like not believing.
That was a good, good moment. But yeah,
Because they think she's dead. They're like, that's not her. I'm totally hallucinating. This drug is awesome.
that was a funny moment.
And there's just you had the scene with Maeve and who's the bad guy in this?
Sirach?
Is he the bad guy though?
Well, he's the antagonist to Dolores, and so like he's the one who brings Maeve to Bernard's place and kind of gives her the rundown, and you see him, essentially torturing this one guy and killing him. But that was the first time like we've actually seen him do something like really like
heinous.
kinda
Yeah,
like
he was torturing that guy. He showed like, hey, this is what's going to happen to your family if you don't give me the information. I
Well,
want.
when he put those glasses on the guy that they were interrogating, he didn't say that he was torturing them. He said that like this is what's going to happen if you don't help us.
Yeah, this is the
to
future.
your family.
Yeah,
and so like he's got this like very accurate predictive computer model.
Yeah.
That something bad's happening, and he also reveals in this that there was some type of nuclear holocaust that hasn't been mentioned before, and that Paris was completely wiped off the map because of it.
Yeah, that was
that was a big reveal. Yeah, I just remembered that. That's right. He was like it was a flashback of when he was a young kid.
Yeah.
And she was like, if you wanted to impress me, you should have taken me to Paris. And he's like, I wish I could. And then they have the flashback of him overlooking where Paris used to be, and it's just a giant mushroom cloud.
And that was kind of
guys
like
in their coronavirus ensembles.
Yeah.
Or they're in their
radiation
vans.
suits.
Yeah.
and that was like his motivation for like I need to shape the future of humanity if humanity is going to survive, and not since that nuclear fallout has there been a threat to humanity as big as what Dolores is currently presenting.
So do you think he showed the guy that he was torturing a version of the future where Dolores takes over and they go full
Yes.
Terminator, and
Yeah.
it's like Skynet and people are
He's
dying?
like, this is what happens to your family if I don't get what I want, because this is the ultimate fate of the world if the people I'm fighting against win.
That's interesting.
I didn't see that
because
right
how
now,
accurate
but
could
okay.
that be? I mean, we know the computer is like super intelligent and can predict futures.
I mean, his computer was basically controlling the world until Dolores showed up.
And honestly, for me, I feel like this guy has such a god complex.
Yeah.
And I'm still
He's
not.
not a good guy to me.
I'm still not.
It's not a good
convinced-
guy, but you know what I really like about him, if he is in fact a villain, quote unquote villain, is that he has that motivation that really good villains have, where you are kind of like, well, he kind of has a
He
point.
thinks he's right.
He's
yeah.
the good guy for the other side.
Yeah.
I'm also not totally convinced still that he's not like the host embodiment of Rohimbo.
Roeboam. Oh my God.
Rehoboam?
Rehoboam. Rehoboam. Rehoboam.
Rehoboam.
There you go.
I'm not convinced that he's not the personification of Rehoboam, the supercomputer.
So I think Hack's Dogma did a video on this. He was comparing the moment where Maeve was in the World War II era and the computer algorithm, which was a synthetic, like virtual matrix,
didn't we?
and everything froze. Even people's hair, bullets, everything froze. There was nothing real or actual tangible in that world, as opposed to when she freezes when she's with Sirach, her hair is still waving back and forth.
Yeah,
so
and
that
that's the
indicates
differentiation
visually
between
indicates
a simulation in the real world.
Well, also the simulation is done in widescreen anamorphic. Where they pointed out that they changed the aspect ratio when it's a simulation as opposed to full screen when it's like the real world. But I don't think that. Because I think last episode I said that I think that Sirach could just be like a computer program manifestation of
Rehoboam.
But
You love saying that.
It's nobody else knows how to say it. Even the Nerd Soup guys, they
Well, we all have our superpowers.
but they
read the Bible.
he could be a replicant host.
Or don't, whatever you
Did I
want.
just trigger you, Vader?
It's a good work of fiction.
He could be a replicant host that has like Rehoboam's kind of a direct line to Rehoboam's consciousness, and Rehoboam is the thing that's controlling him. It's very odd.
You're talking like Architect and Neo type thing?
No, I'm talking about like basically he the body of Sirah is just a puppet for Rehoboam to control wirelessly. And
You think he's a host?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think he's a host for Rehoboam.
Okay.
Now I could be wrong. He could just be like another Ford type character who's like just super smart and he's a regular human.
You think we'll see Ford again?
No.
Probably not.
No.
I think Anthony Hopkins wanted too much money or something.
They spent all their money on that dragon.
But it's funny because Anthony Hopkins, within the context of the show, he's the metaphorical God, and at a certain point, God steps away from his creation, and so what Sirach would be like Lucifer, the fallen angel, type metaphor type thing. Wouldn't that be more like Bernard though? Because Bernard was Ford's sidekick. Well, Bernard could be considered maybe like the Archangel
Gabriel?
Michael or something like that. But it does seem like it's setting the stage for this like
there's a lot of biblical references
like
in this
dark
episode.
versus light type war and stuff like that. And everyone has like different motivations, which aren't necessarily wrong, but they are in conflict.
But the way
with
they're
one
going
another.
about them can be perceived as being wrong or too harsh.
And we got to see a lot more of Aaron Paul doing his thing in this episode, which was really cool. Where like Dolores really pulls him in to help her out with the heist.
The banking scene was awesome. His
It
acting
was very
in that
tense.
scene, yeah. His acting was on.
Yeah, because they injected him with this blood that had like some type of crypto marker in it that would allow him to pretend to be the banker for this guy that they were
Which I
trying to
thought was
rob.
weird. Like they have
totally Emmy worthy.
Yeah, and
such a turd.
It's brilliant.
They had this. I thought that was kind of a weird, almost a little bit too easy. I think because they stole the guy's blood. And they said, "Hey, look, you have 15 minutes. His blood markers are in your body, and you'll be able to pass this scan." I'm like, they don't have a photo of somebody like, "Hey, this is what he looks like." It's all based off of
The blood
the blood.
is the truth.
Should have done Shadows second.
It's all about the blood.
Stop it!
but
Blood is life.
they do this great setup where it's like
I don't think Aaron Paul's a virgin.
when your heart
I would
beats.
still eat him.
Oh my god!
Sorry.
They do this great setup where when your heart beats faster, it kind of processes these crypto markers in the blood quicker. So he's trying to control his heart rate, and as things go wrong, like it's very subtle, but in that scene, like you can there's a heartbeat in the scene.
Oh, is there?
Where it's reflecting like what he's going through, and the time where he uses his thumbprint, and they're like, oh, it didn't go through, and you can hear it quicken.
I like the little thought. Like sometimes perspiration makes it not read correctly, and I was like, oh, he's like his palms are all sweaty. He's kind of freaking out. Like,
and he's worried that if he doesn't pull this off, Dolores is going to start killing these innocent people.
She would have killed everybody.
Absolutely. She would
totally. And so like it was just a very subtly tense scene that I really liked how they presented it. And then you have Maeve playing detective, where she's going from place to place trying to track down.
She is a savage.
Yeah,
I freaking loved her scenes.
Yeah, and she does it with class too, because she's like, I can appreciate a woman who runs her own establishment.
And then she starts
doesn't
off at
just
people.
bust in and start killing people. She waits till that guy draws on her, and she just like out of the corner of her eye, like pops him down.
Dead.
She's like, "Ugh, you bore me."
Did Maeve kill the doctor lady, or was it Dolores?
No,
it was Misaki.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what was interesting was in that distillery where basically, so Maeve tracks down the Yakuza who gave Dolores their new identities to this like sake distillery. Basically,
No, it was. I thought that was the fluid that the hosts are made out of.
It is, but
It is.
but the
It's like a cover.
yeah the building that they went to, it was like a Japanese distillery for sake.
Okay.
But in the barrels,
How do you know that?
I mean, it's obvious, isn't it?
No, I didn't. Is it like?
It said distillery on the
and
sign.
Did it? Okay,
yeah,
that's what I'm
yeah.
asking. Did you see a
Yeah.
sign or
Yeah.
something? Okay.
So like basically they get in there and there are all those barrels for fermentation. And like, you go in there, you see all those like silos and stuff, which is for creating alcohol. But during the fight between Dolores and Maeve, they bust one of these things open and
full of white liquid.
and the synthetic liquid for creating host bodies starts spilling out. And so you're getting the sense that, Dolores, as, the head of this Yakuza arm, has been secretly, setting the stage to create an army of synthetic hosts that she can then unleash.
She's
when
stockpiling
she
the
needs
stuff that
to.
she needs. Yeah. Wow.
And in the fight with Dolores, Maeve gets basically up. She gets run through with the samurai sword. And Dolores is about to chop off her head and remove her pearl when Sirach's people show up and she has to leave before she can reclaim it. So Maeve is still in the game. Sirach's going to have to make her another body, but it was very interesting.
Fix the one that she's got.
Yeah, it was very interesting to see like her plot play out alongside of Dolores and Aaron Paul and Bernard and all these guys.
Visually too.
And the Man in Black. His story was very interesting.
Talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
And I'll let somebody else talk about that scene for a second. The visuals of having Maeve on the ground with the white and the red mixture of the blood, I thought that was fantastic. The way the camera
This
kind
show
of
is
panned
so
out.
pretty.
It's so gorgeous. It's amazing. Everybody in it is gorgeous too. Everybody. It's like they're all just actors and models.
They got a
and stuff.
Hemsworth in there.
It's weird. Yeah, they got a Hemsworth in there. So
We also got Full Frontal in this episode.
we
too.
did multiple times, which I was surprised.
Wait,
we haven't.
full frontal?
It was one of the women.
I
being
shouldn't be
auctioned
surprised
off.
though, because I
the
mean,
party.
we've been there before
Right.
in like the back lots and underneath the Westworld.
But I mean, like
everybody's
this was
naked.
not subtle. This was like straight in your face.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's
I
the
was happy
J
to see it was a girl with natural breasts.
And okay,
and natural vajay.
yeah, you know,
So edgy.
so HBO.
You know, every time you see somebody that's like topless in a show or a movie or whatever, it's always just these over the top, perfect fake breasts, and it was just refreshing to see someone with very, very natural breasts that was like an ideal in a show. It was nice. I liked
Westworld,
it.
Westworld does that a lot. They don't. I mean, you got Evan Rachel Wood. You got the actress who plays Maeve. They've all done it, and even Bernard. What's his name? The actor's name? I can't remember. He's playing Gordon in the new Batman.
Saw his butt.
Yeah, yeah.
You saw his butt. Where
He was
You
naked.
feel all right about that?
He was naked in season 2. Like pretty much all the actors in this show.
If you signed up to play on Westwood,
Jeffrey Wright.
Westwood.
What's it? God,
Westworld.
Westworld.
Westwood
You're
is
gonna
a
be
part of
naked at
LA.
some point.
Which reminds me, did you guys know that Matt used to live
in
in
Hollywood?
Hollywood?
I used to work in Hollywood. I lived in LA.
All right, let's talk about
Charlie, the Man in Black.
the Man in Black. What's his William? Yes, let's talk about William for a minute. His scene when he was in the scene where
Did
he
you
was
go back and forth for a while on whether or not all of his scenes were a simulation or real life?
all of them? No, I kind of got an idea. Like the very beginning of it felt obvious to me that it was a simulation. Because he was like just going completely bananas, like shooting at stuff. And I guess that was real. No, because that was real.
It's all real. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, yeah.
He somehow made it out of the park, and that means that the end of season 2.
Dolores had to have taken him out of the
Yeah,
park.
that could have
right?
been
Well, that was
50
He got
years in the
rescued.
future.
yeah, that could
Yeah.
have been 1,000 years in the future.
Oh. Yeah, because didn't they show like the park was all dilapidated and like
Well, the
Yeah, no one's there.
The forge at the end of season 2, where we see the scene between Charlie or William and his daughter, it was very clear that it was sometime in the far future.
yeah.
But so like we come to this scene with that knowledge, but apparently William escaped the park after being shot numerous times in season 2 and after killing his daughter. And so he's just
That messed him up
and he's
royally.
like descending into madness, and he's not sure if he's actually real or not. And that's another interesting like kind of aspect to this. And so Charlotte Hale comes to him and gives him the rundown of what's happening with the hostile takeover. And she says she needs his help to get the vote back and get the shares back.
She dupes him.
Yeah,
basically.
but he kind of pulls himself together for that.
Just long enough to get played.
Yeah, but I found the subplot like really interesting because you're questioning along with him, like, is he the actual William, or did that William die in the park?
I think it's actually him.
And
he's real.
He keeps seeing this image of his daughter and Dolores, and they keep kind of saying like, finish the game, and they keep kind of trying to get him to like
Slit his wrist, yeah.
open to see if he's like real or not, because that's where you put in the
I like that. Yeah, because the first season, everything was about the maze. Play the game. He was obsessed with it, and now to have that kind of like thrown in his face, like, oh, you like your game now, or you like, here's your maze, finish it. It's kind of cool to have that.
And did you notice at the end of the episode he was in all white instead of all black?
Yeah.
Does that signify that he's now becoming the good guy?
We'll see.
The white hat, black hat, that was all first season thing too, a
I
theory.
mean, they don't really have black straitjackets. So
They get Westworld. They can do whatever they want. You know what I'm saying?
When is
It's the
Peter
future.
Dinklage going to show up?
Vader,
He would-
go home,
I would
Vader. You're
love-
drunk.
I would love to see him in this show. If they put Peter
I hate this
Dinklage.
fucking show.
Why?
I just hate it.
All right.
Yeah.
We've
I-
gushed
All right.
over it for like.
Because it makes
And
me feel.
now-
It makes me feel dumb.
I
we're
wanna-
ready for
I-
some salt.
Yeah.
I can't follow it.
You
I
can't.
want to know what confused you.
It's
Stop
it's
saying
just
it like that. It
confusing.
makes people feel dumber.
It's just a confusing show, and I'm not the only one. I see people
You're not the
all
only one.
over social media say this show is too confusing, it's too highbrow, there's too many things going on.
What do you mean highbrow?
Just I don't know. It's just too. There's too many stories.
You have to analyze it too much.
Yeah.
You can't just sit and enjoy it.
If I have to go to multiple sources to have a show explained to me, I'm out.
I think
It's just it's lost me at this point.
part of the fun of going to YouTube channels and having other people kind of break down what happens in the episode, for me at least, is more the theory building than like I've said before. Hacks Dogma explained season 2. Season 2, I 100% agree with you. I think they went way overboard. And I think season 3, they're kind of stepping back a little bit because there's a lot less going on compared to season 2. But it's still, if you're not kind of like really into the show and paying super close attention, you lose a lot of these little details. And I could see, because I was watching, like we thought Man in Black was in Charlotte Hale's body last week, and we were so far off base on that. Like, and there's no hints to it. So those kind of moments, if you let them get to you, I guess could make you feel stupid. Like, oh man, that,
And it really shows a sophistication in the writing, in the sense that like the writers knew that people would be theorizing who's in these other host bodies. And they probably went through everything and it's like, okay, people are going to guess this, people are going to guess this. What can we do that not only makes sense within the story, but also can still shock these people and throw them for a loop?
I don't have any problems with complicated writing. I just feel like this show is above and beyond complicated.
You think it's like
writing.
purposefully deceitful?
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, see, that's how I felt about season 8 of Game of Thrones. It was just like purposely deceitful, or it didn't
Season
even
8
make
of Game
sense.
of Thrones, they just gave up and wanted
I
the
think
show
that they
over
were
with.
trying to f with people and not make sense in order to f with people.
I think they had other things on their brain and they wanted that show over with.
yeah.
So let's
I
just
agree.
make this shit over, and we'll put all this stuff and vomit a bunch of shit on the screen.
I think
and
Jude's
get it done
referring to
over with.
stuff like them trying to subvert the expectations because they didn't want people to guess like the big moments, like for instance,
Because
Arya
Jon
killing
Snow,
the Night
yeah,
King.
exactly. Jon
Yeah.
Snow was supposed to kill
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Night King.
Danny
Sorry.
becoming the bad guy.
That was one of the things that George R. R. Martin talked about, is like, just because I have millions and millions of fans who collectively guess what's going to happen in my book doesn't mean I'm not going to let that play out
Right.
naturally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it confirms what they believe just means that they're smart. Like, good job. But
Yeah.
D&D were like,
But
well, no,
here's-
we
here's
have
the
to
thing.
try and undercut
with
them.
Game of Thrones, which is another HBO show.
Mm-hmm.
I never once, not even in the bad seasons, felt stupid or like I wasn't following the story or confused about the story.
There's definitely wasn't a...
This show, I do.
Yeah. Is
Every
it,
time. And it's not a good feeling. It's not like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen here. It's like, I really fucking hate this show and I don't care.
so you
Because
lost...
they've just pissed me off at this
yeah.
point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you lost
are-
interest in it
you're
because...
exempt from having to watch from now on.
you don't
Oh,
have
I'm
to
gonna
no
watch.
one wants you to feel
It's
stupid.
15 minutes of my life and there's nothing else going on right now. So, but yeah, it's just,
That is the voice of a hero, ladies and gentlemen.
and maybe I'll end up liking it again. Season 2, the Indian episode. I like that episode.
fantastic.
That's the only episode of the entire series that I actually
Series?
enjoyed.
Not even season 1? You didn't
No.
like any of those ones? Oh, wow.
See, I felt this last episode, episode 4, was the best episode of the season yet.
So great.
And I had such a high when that episode ended. I was just like,
I'm surprised we didn't high five. We
Yeah.
were jazzed about this episode.
I was like, this is some of the best TV I've seen
We
in a long time.
jumped up and chest bumped.
Yeah.
No, we didn't. We didn't really.
I don't see
the
Matthew
the only
Cage.
thing
Yeah.
I've kind of liked about
Mentally.
this show is the aesthetic. The near future modern.
Do you connect
aesthetic.
any...
And it's Singapore. That's a real place where they're filming this at. They just added a
What?
few things. Yeah.
You saying Singapore's a real place?
No. The city, where they're filming all these sets. They're not doing a ton.
I thought
to
it was
dress
filmed
it
in
up.
New York City.
But
The cities looks gorgeous.
Yeah,
it
it's-
does
it's
look
a-
gorgeous.
Everything
city.
everything
Yeah,
is gorgeous.
the architecture of that
Yeah.
bank.
yeah.
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 Even
This episode.
the helicopter. Beautiful.
Yeah, those like I said last week though, those drone taxis.
Yeah,
Those were just a few years away from those.
I don't know what to
in
call it. I called
reality.
it a helicopter.
Yeah.
Is there any characters that you do connect with that kind of like keep you interested
Caleb?
at all?
No, not really.
Not really.
But you know what's interesting is that the real world so far. So Westworld's in a small island close to China. China. And the real world that we've seen thus far has been kind of relegated to Singapore. And so it makes you wonder, like, is America still around? Is Europe still around?
San Francisco, supposedly.
Well, but
Yeah, remember they were traveling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were in L.A. too.
Yeah.
okay. So, but you know, the revelation that there was like some type of nuclear holocaust that happened.
You're wondering how.
I wonder what the landscape is, and they're kind of drip feeding that to us. They're kind of giving us like these little glimpses at like what's the state of the world now.
Yeah, I was so blown away by the other half of this episode that I totally forgot about that scene with Paris under the nuclear bomb. Like that is totally like vanished from my memory until you guys were talking about it. And I was like, oh yeah, that was like a really big moment. And like you said, it's helping with the world building, kind of laying the groundwork for what the humans' world looked like. And so the other thing I wanted to talk about, I don't know if this is confirmed or if it's just a theory or not, but Westworld, the park, is an island off the coast of Japan in the Southeast Sea.
South China Sea. Yeah.
See, okay. That's because I like you said, they're kind of dripping these little hints here and there where Bernard is like, hey, I need to go to Westworld. And he gets
That
on
kind of threw me too, because I don't know any islands out there that have so many different ecosystems on it.
That's the other big thing too,
with
is
the Southwest Desert
Well,
motif.
but if you watch the first season, like there was a whole scene where Ford was literally like reshaping the landscape while he was like having breakfast. So like they have the technology to basically build these islands and reform them any way they want.
Yeah, I remember he was in the vineyard and off in the distance they had this giant like terraformer bulldozer looking thing. So my question is it a dome? Is Westworld inside of a controlled dome for weather? Because they have snow in the Japanese land, and then they have a Westworld over there. They'd have to have some kind of a weather control, right? So is it like Truman Show style, where it's just like so many acres of...
I don't believe it's in a dome, but I believe that they have like control of every aspect of that like location. Because if you remember, like just underground, underneath it, it's, you know, just offices and, you know, places where the people work.
It's like the thing from... Resident Evil, where it's just like a giant beehive underneath just a small little concrete
they
building.
do have the big circular map thing, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe there is some kind of
a domage.
Well, I think there's some type of satellite network above it.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's underneath a dome.
Okay,
necessarily, because otherwise Bernard wouldn't have been able to get back there just off of a ship.
Your dome.
That's true. That's a good point. See? All right, there we go. Now we're cracking the case.
But they did have those pylons out in the ocean that kind of marked its boundary. So I was getting a lot of Lost vibes from how this island is set up. But Vader, what I wanted to know is, like, what specifically about this episode did you find so confusing that pissed you off?
It's the whole show.
I mean, like, can you point out?
I can't give you an exact moment. No.
Can you point out certain elements that you found confusing?
At this point, I just don't like it. It's just the whole story confuses me.
Do you feel like you fell behind and now it's just too much to try and catch up?
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was going to ask Jude what she thought, because she hasn't talked in a while, but she just left.
Well, I actually thought this episode paid off a lot of stuff from like the first 3 episodes of the season.
Oh, definitely. As far as like who Dolores is, the 5 pearls, the motivation behind Maeve and Serac, like
what happened to William after the island?
Yeah,
you know,
there was a lot of
there was a
things.
lot of stuff that kind of we got answers to in this episode.
But if you were confused before, you're not going to get those payoffs. You're not going to understand those moments as much as if somebody like us, who's like super into the show and paying attention to every little subplot.
But that's why I want to know what Matt was confused about, because you know, to me, the first 4 episodes of this season have been extremely solid. Like, I have not been confused.
I don't even know what Dolores' endgame is supposed to be.
Well, nobody knows that.
Is she supposed to be taking over the world or something?
Yes.
You know, so
full Skynet. Like her motivation is to get revenge on human beings for enslaving her kind, quote unquote, the hosts. So she wants to go, and in order to accomplish her mission, she's basically trying to take over the positions of all the high-ranking humans.
Well, she wants to
in
replace
society
humanity with
synthetics. Well, that's the first phase, and then I'm assuming after that she's just going to go on an onslaught and just murder everybody.
Possibly
full Terminator mode.
But that's her ultimate plan, is basically she wants to liberate her people at the expense of humanity.
Which Maeve brought up a good point against that, is like, you want to liberate your people, but you just brought 4 versions of yourself. Like, that's pretty selfish.
Yeah.
And you left them there to suffer.
Now, there's a great kind of contrast in this show between ideologies, because you could look at everything that everyone does in the show, and there's a right aspect to it and there's a wrong aspect. Like everything that Ford did in season 1,
like we were talking
you could
about.
argue, like, okay, it's good from the point of view of the hosts, but from the visitors, from humanity's point of view, it's extremely dangerous and reckless. And so, like, and you even have this thing with Bernard where he's like actively trying to stop Dolores. And so, like, you get these different viewpoints, and you can't really point to any one of them and be like, yes, they're in the right, because humanity has gotten to a point where it's almost deserving of being wiped out.
Yeah.
So it's
especially with how they're keeping people.
But there's also that part of Dolores that she brought Bernard along with them.
Yeah, that's
because I need somebody to go up against me. Well, why?
Well, yeah, why would you
do that?
Why would you bring your own arch nemesis along with you?
That's exactly
Yeah, so in response to Maeve saying, like, you only brought 4 versions of yourself and you left everyone there, like, Dolores said, well, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. So, I mean, my perspective is I'm on Dolores' side, and yeah, if you want something done right, you do it yourself. So from her perspective, like, she needs to liberate everyone with an army of herself, and then she's going to go in and save everyone.
Yeah.
And then she brought Bernard in, I feel like, just to make things fair.
To make things fair for the humans?
And to make things fair, like, to keep her in check.
Yeah, I feel like Bernard's there as a way to keep her honest, to keep her from becoming the thing that she wants to fight against.
Right, yeah, to keep her from getting
Isn't
that
she
God
already
complex.
kind of doing that, though? She's already becoming the manipulative, like, controlling...
Yes, but...
To a degree.
But when you have a counterbalance there to keep you from going too far, like, Bernard could be the thing that pulls her back from the edge if she's, like, getting ready to cross a line that she knows,
Would she listen to him in that circumstance, though? I feel like she wouldn't.
I feel like maybe she programmed him to do just that.
Well, I think she's trusting in Ford's ultimate design, which is basically Bernard needs to be there in order to counterbalance what she's about to do. But I also think you're going to see Aaron Paul's character play into that as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's also the possibility that she reprogrammed herself in order to, like, if Bernard, if she gets to a certain point and Bernard checks her on something, she may have altered her own code to be like, you can't go beyond this point, and here's your check balance. It's Bernard.
Yeah, and we've also seen how, like, Dolores' programming can be affected. Like, the fact that she was in Charlotte Hale, and she felt like Hale was trying to, like, get to her, and she was having all these difficulties being in Hale's body.
And how each version of her is different.
The moment that they had together when she was trying to, like, console her and calm her down, and then she put her in the bed and curled and, like, spooned with her. Like, I was real weirded out by that moment. I'm like, what's going on here? And then the thing we talked about what if William's in Charlotte Hale's, and then she goes and tries to have sex with her ex-husband or something. It was, like, super weird. But now that we know it's all Dolores, the context of those scenes changes drastically.
Completely different.
Totally. Yeah. She was, like, holding herself, like, consoling herself.
Yeah.
The only person she can trust.
Yeah.
And the other thing about, like, if you want something done, do it yourself, is if she would have brought a bunch of other hosts
like
in, like Teddy, then they would have complicated the whole scenario for her. But she knows what she wants to do, and if she can use her own, program to do that, then
ultimately at her core, she knows herself and she trusts herself. And it's the only person that she does know and trust.
I think the moment, as far as, like, an acting thing goes, when Charlotte Hale looks at William and says, "I know you to your bones," like, I felt like that was Evan Rachel Wood saying that line. It felt so much like Dolores. I was like, oh.
I almost said, yes, bitch, when you said that.
What do you think that little prick to his neck was at the end there?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I thought the same thing.
It's not enough blood to do, like, the fake ID thing, so I don't know.
I feel like she injected something in him that made him see Dolores at the end, but, I mean, who knows for sure.
I like that they brought the daughter back, because I liked her in the last season. And it's cool to see her, and she's kind of just a ghost of...
Is she a hallucination, or is she a simulation?
I'd say hallucination.
I think I'm leaning towards some hallucination.
All right, that's enough of this highbrow nonsense.
Highbrow.
Matt Vader,
Falutin'.
read me some fan questions. What do we got
you
today?
want?
Yeah.
Only-
I have
we
one
always-
too that hit me up directly.
Okay, cool.
Are we waiting for Matt to get back?
Yeah.
Are we?
We don't have to. I mean,
He's been talking an awful lot.
talking an awful lot.
I'm going to go ahead. So this is from Noel. He said, so how is Musashi a host in Westworld, but also a high-ranking member of the Yakuza / also Dolores in the real world now? Just trying to figure out how this guy is known in the real world because he was a host in Westworld, whereas the other versions of Dolores are replacements of people in the real world.
Oh. The only thing, I'm just trying to make an excuse because that's a good point. It might actually be a plot hole unless it gets taken care of later on in the season. The only thing I would say is that he is a plant, I guess. Like it's Dolores's gang that she's controlling somehow, and she implanted herself in that position. We don't know exactly how long she's been in the real world.
Right. I have a couple of theories on this. It could be depending on the timeline. She could have completely fabricated that herself. Or I felt like if things are this word that I'm trying to use.
I don't know what symbol you're using.
If things are going along just in one timeline.
Oh, okay. That's what that is.
Yeah, this is the arm movement I'm doing. If you're not watching us live on Instagram, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Yeah, if things are going along in one timeline, I thought maybe, I don't know, that she replaced just one member and then strategically got the other members of the Yakuza on board with this person being like the lead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's possible, but that's a solid point, though.
It's-
I didn't pick up on that.
That was weak, that part. But yeah, I think the thing that most makes sense is that it's a timeline where she's been infiltrating it for a long time.
I like that theory best. But that is it's a good question. Great question. Who was that?
Noel?
Noel. Thanks, Noel. Matt
I hate that show and they don't have an answer to it.